Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Joe Emilio Show. I am here with Koketso Resane. I'm assuming that's how you pronounce your surname. Sorry.
Close enough.
Koketso, how are you, buddy?
I'm living, yeah, I'm living. Could be worse, but I'm living.
Absolutely, yeah. I've been meaning to get you on the show for quite a while. I've watched you on Manpatria. For those of you who don't know, you can catch Koketsu there very often on that show. So please go check it out. And I've been wanting to have you on the show for a while, and unfortunately, fortunately, I guess is one of the situations we find ourselves in a very interesting situation in South Africa. And I was hoping this would be a kind of fun and upbeat conversation, but we can't avoid the topic at hand at the moment. And if you don't know what's happening, South Africa is basically burning. And we're going to talk a bit about some of the theories that are circulating at the moment as to why this is happening. What are the causes? Why haven't the riots stopped? There's a lot of stuff going around at the moment, and later on, I'm also going to share a voice note that was given to me a few moments ago by Herman Ruas, who's giving us an update on where he is, because he's actually, for those of you who don't know, Herman Ruas is a tobacco farmer. He's been on my show before, and he's currently helping the community members in his area or in the area that he is in. He's going to give a bit of an update on how he is doing. I thought I'd share that with you guys. But yeah, Kaketsu, before we get into that, I really
Hmm.
want to ask you, what is it that you do, and who is Kaketsu?
Okay. I guess now's a good time to say I was born in 1991, so that makes me 30 now. No
Nice.
one prepared me for this, so yeah, it's sad, unsaid. I see you sipping that Bur cola,
Of
or is
course,
it
of
Bur beer?
course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Represent.
awesome. But yeah, a little bit about me. So yeah, I was born to missionary parents. Way back in the day, my mother was a nurse. She married a pastor. Spent the first few years of my life in Mahigeng, formerly known as Mafigeng. Lived out there in Unit 2. Yeah, actually, a couple of years ago, I went back to the house I grew up in, and it does not look like how we left it.
Mm.
But yeah, but been in Joburg now for over 20 years, I guess. So you could pretty much say that Joburg thickened through. That's where the accent comes from.
Nice.
Yeah, what do I do for fun? I take photos. What do I do 9 to 5? I'm a business analyst, software consultant slash application engineer. Basically, I work with computers and I make things work.
Fantastic. Now you're going to be on my speed dial, just because of that.
Join the list. Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah, and then obviously you podcast with Dumo from Manpatria every now and again.
Yeah, yeah. Me and Dumo go way back, actually. We're talking primary school now.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, cool. I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So yeah, we go way back. Been watching each other grow as well, and we largely pretty much the same people after all these years of friendship as well. So it's always good to have someone around who knows the young you, the medium you, the large you. Yeah,
Absolutely, basically brothers, brothers from another mother, basically.
yeah. Well, okay, he's closer. Hold on.
All right. I went too far. Sorry.
Yeah.
All good, man. All good. No, it's good to get to know you a little bit. Yeah, kind of the same, almost the same story. I'm not wasn't born here either. I've been here for about, geez, since 2007. So you can do the math. And born in the States, moved to Egypt for a bit, moved here. Parents divorced. My mom's here. I'm married to a South African at the moment. At the moment, I say at the moment like I'm planning on changing. She's watching, so I'm gonna be in trouble after this. But no,
Yeah.
what I meant is I'm married to South African. Have no plans on changing that. And I am South African as well. So yeah, it's been a crazy ride since moving here, and yeah, I guess that leads us into the current topic at hand. And for those of you that are watching, like, please feel free. I'm keeping an eye on the comments. I also want your guys' take on what we're talking about. I really want to get your guys' opinions on what Koketsu and I are going to be chatting about. And Koketsu, I'm struggling a little bit with where to begin with this one because we've had now this rioting and looting happening in South Africa for a few days now. At the beginning, everybody thought it was because of the incarceration of Zuma, but it seems to have evolved. And people are being asked on the news, why are you doing this? And people, is it because of Zuma? Is it because Zuma's in prison? And people are actually saying, no, it's not. It's because we're hungry. A lot of people saying that we're
Mm.
hungry, we're hungry. That seems to be what the media will say as well. Like, oh, people are doing this because they're hungry, unemployed, blah blah. Let's start with that theory. Do you think that theory holds true?
That people are hungry, I'd say somewhat. So maybe if we rewind here, we'll remember there that everyone kind of knows that South African media in general, or even let me say the cabinet, they only really pay attention when things start burning. So people kind of figured out very quickly that them actually sitting outside Nkandla and doing nothing and showing support didn't really achieve much because, in the end, Mr. Zuma handed himself over to the police, the show of force from the SAPS as well. So, that maybe kind of encouraged it. So people figured, okay, so, clearly, this isn't the wish they wanted. So why not try the tried and trusted, which is to start burning things down? So the moment that starts and the police did nothing, people kind of then figured that, you know what, I can actually take my chances here.
Mm-hmm.
I've always wanted a nice TV. My kettle's broken. I need a microwave. I've been meaning to buy a bed, etc., etc., etc. So people saw that police weren't doing nothing and figured I'll take my chances. And obviously, the snowball effect kicks in, and before you know it, we've got mass looting all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And the pattern here is, if you're paying attention, this only ever happens in your predominantly poor areas as well. And that's where the hunger conversation comes in. But I don't believe it's because of hunger. I think it's people literally taking their chances. This isn't the first time, this isn't the last time this will happen either.
Mm-hmm. No, you know what? Somewhat, I kind of agree. I mean, there are people I think that are definitely hungry. I mean, we've been in a lockdown for over a year. There's been a lot of job losses, a lot of unemployment with the youth, 50% unemployment across South Africa. People just want to provide for their families. So I do believe that there is some truth with some of these looters with that. I do think that, like you just said, a lot of them are opportunists. They will just, hey, I also want a 58-inch TV. I'm sure we all saw that imagery of that man trying to put a 58-inch TV in his car.
In a 1995 Toyota Corolla, like,
He should have done it Egyptian style. Like Egyptian style, they just would have
yeah,
gotten some rope, put it on the roof, and tied it to the roof. That's what they would have done in Egypt.
it's too much admin.
Too much admin. Oh man. Yeah. Okay. So here's my theory on what is happening. And I think it's multi-layered, and I think there's definitely a political aspect to it. Obviously, this all started. Well, some people believe it's all started because of politics, but um, I think this is all about elections. It's got nothing to do with anything else. Yes, there are people that are hungry that will loot. Yes, there are opportunists that will get involved and loot what they want. But I think that on some degree, this is kind of coordinated. I think that because reports are coming in that buses are being people in buses are being sent to places. There are other interesting things that are happening, like license plates not on cars. So that makes questions rise, and I think
Hmm.
if we look at what happened last year in 2020 with the U.S. elections, we saw the same imagery: buildings being burnt, looting happening, and yes, different narrative, completely different narrative, but
Hmm.
the same thing. And the left won their elections; they managed to get Biden in power. Now I am starting to think that maybe this is all about the Zuma versus Cyril faction, and they're trying to make Cyril look bad. They're trying to. My theory is that they're going to make him look so bad that it appears that he can't handle this situation, and they will basically tell him, vote of no confidence. We want you out. You're not doing this very well. And then either NDZ or the vice president of South Africa will step in, and there'll be a huge campaign around that. Like oh look, it's we're changing, we're fixing everything. Like that whole dawn again, that whole new dawn will come up. They'll win some support again, obviously because it's NDZ. There'll be a huge support on her side from the Zuma faction and people who support Zuma. And yeah, the ANC will manage to stay in power again.
That's actually an interesting theory. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right in that. Look, it is an election year. At this point, elections are only a couple of weeks away as well.
Mm.
But maybe let me introduce a spanner in the works here. There's always there's just a propensity that every time we're about to go vote, even things like cash and transit heists go on the up.
Yeah.
And people have always had their own little theories about why that is so and why this only happens during an election year. But your twist here is that this is a play to make Cyril Ramaphosa look like he's incompetent. My question then is, but who do you replace Ramaphosa with? If we have to have that honest conversation, who is actually potentially in line to replace Ramaphosa? Deputy President, I don't know if he's still in Russia or not, but he's always ill,
Mm.
right? Zweli Mkhize, who looked like he wanted to make a campaign out of everything. He's been now proved to be, almost terminally corrupt with the digital vibe scandal. So he's almost out of the running. NDZ, I don't think a lot of people are happy with her because she was the one, kind of the face of lockdown regulations to a certain degree, the reason why people couldn't buy alcohol, the reason why restaurants weren't open, etc., etc. So yeah, I'd have to question whether there's actually someone ready to fill in the Ramaphosa gap. Keep in mind also the ANC, Mandela did have one presidential term, but everyone after him kind of had two terms. Zuma was kind of the oddity in that he didn't finish his second term, but he was maybe about a year away from finishing it. So
Mm.
if you put it like that, it is plausible. But if you look at the NEC, it's chaos there right now. It's
Mm.
absolute chaos. Ace Makashule is still facing charges. The court has effectively, yeah, they've effectively upheld the ANC's own internal decision to suspend him. After Ace, who are we looking at? We've got Jesse Duarte, who's completely useless. You've got maybe someone like Paul Mashatile, but he doesn't seem to have been campaigning much.
Mm.
Maybe if you look at all the premiers, Gauteng Premier also doesn't seem to be campaigning much. There isn't a very compelling list of Cyril Ramaphosa alternatives. In fact, the reason Ramaphosa came back in as deputy president is because even 8 years ago, there wasn't really a credible list of people you would want up there, besides maybe Khalima Motlante. And don't forget as well, there's the whole age thing to keep in mind. A lot of these guys are very old,
Yeah.
members of parliament, some of our ministers. These people are old, Like, I don't see any of them having the energy to campaign against Cyril, who seems to be probably the best of the bunch. But yeah, it's plausible. It's plausible,
Mm.
but let's see how it plays out. Elections are a few weeks away. I think if there was a power play to be made, it's about 2 months late at this point.
Possibly. I think at the end of the day, like, to be honest with you, I don't think it's a matter of really who takes the place. I mean, obviously they need support for who takes Cyril's place, but at the end of the day, ANC has always been about ANC. It's never
Fair
really been
enough.
about who's in power, who's not in power. I
Yeah.
mean, that's what they did to Zuma, right? Zuma was in power. They had a whole campaign to get him out. They got him out. They replaced him with Cyril. And people think that Cyril was the new Don when, everybody knows he was deputy president while Zuma was in power. And he basically helped with the corruption, allegedly. I have to say that.
Allegedly.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, we've seen no difference since Cyril's been in power. He promised a lot of, he said in 2018, in 2 years, load shedding will be a thing of the past, and here we are. So I think for ANC, it's far more important for them to remain in power than who is the face of the ANC. Who knows? Maybe someone we haven't thought about will just be pushed to the forefront. I don't know. But yeah, I think regardless of how this plays out, I think it is about elections. Let's try and look at some other. I mean, Deborah. Sorry, I just want to also acknowledge some of the comments that are coming in here. Deborah saying, ANC first, country second. And yeah, so let's look at some of the other theories that are floating around. So there's been some crazy stuff, man, and I'm gonna put on my tinfoil hat for this one. Okay,
Yeah.
because this is now like the stuff that I feel um again, like it's crazy, but it's so crazy that it might be true. It's one of those things.
Okay.
So
I bought something similar, so I don't know if this counts, but
yeah, that's good.
yeah.
This thing isn't going to stay on. But anyway, you guys get my point. Um, the uh, the one theory that's going around at the moment as well, and I got like weird voice notes about this as well, is that there's a coup happening, and that the EFF are behind it.
Coup d'etat.
Yeah. I have you heard of this theory? Do I need to explain what that theory is?
I think maybe explain,
Okay.
because I haven't heard of it, but yeah.
Okay, so basically, there's this voice note going around, and I'm gonna say right off the bat, I received it from one of those, friend of a friend of a friend, friend,
The
friend,
WhatsApp
friend.
groups.
Yeah, like this has been passed on and passed on and passed on, and the original or the person who recorded the voice note is allegedly a cop. Haven't verified that. I don't know if it's true. So take everything I say right now with a pinch of salt. So once now that disclaimer is out of the way, basically, in a nutshell, this guy is talking about how they've captured some of these looters and rioters and stuff like that. And what they're noticing is, like I said earlier, some of the license plates are missing. They're only going after some are opportunists and going after the TVs and stuff, but most are going after the food. And there's a reason why they're doing that. And they're also burning down the buildings on purpose. And this is to hurt the South African population, and to create problems with future like food coming in and stuff like that, because we all know now this is going to cause major problems with the way things work at the moment. So they're trying to destroy the infrastructure of South Africa, and basically that they all had the same script when they were captured. They all were saying basically the same thing. Oh, we're hungry. Oh, we're hungry. Oh, we're hungry. That's why we're doing this. That was a bit suspicious. And then another thing that was suspicious apparently is I said the license plate thing. I'm just trying to remember what all he said. Oh, when they were interrogating the one person, they said no. This is what we plan to do. We plan to now strike the other infrastructure. So we start with food, then they're going to do stuff like the police stations. They're going to do like water plants, stuff like that, like big important infrastructure. They'll do farmland as well, stuff like that. And then apparently, what's going to happen is 2-3 weeks from now, the whole plot will be revealed that it was actually the EFF that planned this all out with people to create a coup. Now, there's a lot of holes in that theory because I feel that it's not big enough yet to get there. I also feel like that's a bit of a stretch to me. I don't know. Like at this stage, at this current time, we're seeing now, it's a bit of a stretch, and people are just clutching at straws. But I will say this: let's not forget that Zuma met with MK veterans. He met with Beketele, and he met with Julius Malema a few months
For tea.
before. Yeah, a few months before he was going to jail. Now, I do think that there is something happening. This is usually riots don't last that long. They're like a day or two, and then they fizzle out. So this is ongoing,
Yeah.
nonstop. So, and I'll play that voice note now as well, but after this theory discussion. But what I'm basically trying to say is I do feel like there is something fishy because of those meetings, but I don't know about a coup yet. How do you feel?
So I'll be very honest here. I honestly don't believe Sello Julius Malema and his ilk are actually intelligent enough to pull off a coup d'etat.
Yeah.
That's my one sentence summary of it. They love to bandy about as these revolutionaries, everything. But I mean, I read a hell of a lot of history. I
Mm,
read it, I consume it. I was a kid learning English via Reader's Digest and the Encyclopedia. True story.
mm,
So yeah, this is what I consume, and if I compare them to like a Chairman Mao, a Benito Mussolini,
mm,
you know they they're not at that level intellectually. They like
mm,
to think of themselves that they are, but they're not. So I don't think they have what it takes to actually pull it off. And then on top of that, I don't think they have the numbers to actually pull it off, to organize these kind of riots at scale. I don't believe they do. There's a higher chance that this is all somewhat spontaneous, if not, in the words of the president, tribalistic or ethnically based or anything like that. I don't believe they have the numbers.
mm.
But yeah, maybe I'll change my mind when we hear that voice note.
Yeah, no, the voice note doesn't really have anything to do with what we're discussing now. It's just an
Okay.
update. But and the voice note with that I got from a friend of a friend or whatever, with this supposed officer. I mean, I could play it, but I mean, like
Yeah, it's
I don't really buy into it that much. I feel like there may be some truths to it, because the cop was saying how they're going to attack infrastructure, and I'm going to show a headline just now of some infrastructure that was attacked. It makes you kind of think like, well, maybe he was onto something, but
mm,
still, there's, I mean, to your point, EFF being that intelligent to make this happen, I just don't think so. I think there were suspicious meetings that did happen, and I think it's all to do with the elections. It's all to do with power play. I don't think it has anything to do with like, yeah, well, if we incarcerate Zuma, then we'll band together all these people and we'll instruct them to do X, Y, and Z, which will lead to this, which will lead to that, which will then do this and this and this. I don't know. I don't think. I think the South African people are very unpredictable when it comes to this stuff, and to be able to
mm.
master plan this on such a scale like this, I don't think so. Or what could also benefit of the doubt, maybe they were just like, let's roll the dice and see what happens, and we make order out of chaos.
Yeah, I guess it's possible. I guess it is possible. But maybe to add to your point, I do honestly believe that at some point the food runs out.
Mm.
And at that point, that's when people will just naturally say, "Okay, cool. Listen, this protest fire, it's actually out of oxygen. So let's all go home and wait for the job adverts to come out to say, right, we need people to clean up the streets, etc." And that's when the same people who are looting will typically come out and say, right, I am available. I have a code 10 driver's license and I'm willing to be a truck driver, etc., etc.
Mm.
So yeah, I think maybe let's just see and wait for things to plan out in terms of targeted infrastructure now. That's almost a militaristic plan here.
Yeah.
But from what we're seeing on the ground, there's absolutely no order. I mean, there was a video coming out from, I think it was Monday. People rushed into a mall only to find private security waiting for them at the
Yes.
supermarket. Did they not run out of there like fleas? So yeah, for me, that just shows me that, okay, these people were not coming in their plan. It was people taking their chances. And yeah, I'm going to maybe pat down this theory that this is hyper organized. I don't think it is. And I think, yeah, let's just give it some time. Eventually, the fire runs out of oxygen and there's no more wood left to burn.
Exactly. I also think like one of the reasons why I think this theory isn't going to go very far is because it's mainly focused in KZN and parts of Gauteng. I've chatted to some other friends about this whole coup notion, and they say two people have told me like the only time they'll believe that there's a coup is if it starts becoming a nation thing, like it starts going further beyond Gauteng and KwaZulu Natal, like Free State and even Western Cape. And I'm staying in the Western Cape at the moment, and everything that there was reports of Mitchell's plane now doing a thing, and then it came out that it was fake news. There's been taxis blocking the N1, which didn't last very long, and then there was a lot of malls that shut down in preparation, and Macro in Tableview was also uh, shut down in as a precaution, but nothing really happened. So there hasn't been a lot of looting and violence in Western Cape. As far as I know, other parts of South Africa still are moderate or quiet. It's really only Gauteng and KZN.
Yeah, and even then, just parts of Gauteng and parts of KZN goes back to what I was saying earlier. It tends to be the less developed areas, if I can put it like that. Yeah, for me, I've had this conversation with a friend. A few years ago, there was rumors that there was going to be this major strike from Alexandra residents. They're going to march across the Greyston Bridge and they're going to shut down Sandton Central. And people were starting to buy into this, mainly because the media was starting to sell this narrative of, hey, guys, tomorrow it won't be safe. If you're working in and around Sandton, just be careful. And I remember talking to my older sister because, I worked a Sandton job at the time and she was asking me, so how is it there? And I'm like, people in Sandton go to work. Like, they're on strike, firstly. Where have you ever heard of like a mass strike in Sandton Central? People there are going to work, so
Yeah.
no one has time to strike. Secondly, yeah, it's the probability of it. Even if people are absolutely angry, right, you will never see such a place go down or be held under siege.
Mm.
I mean, think about it, right? That whole narrative of richest square mile in Africa and everything. So who's in there? You've got your Nedbank in there, you've got your Old Mutual in there, Discovery's in there. In what world do people think that those companies with the financial muscle that they have will literally sit back and allow themselves to be held to siege?
Mm.
So yeah, until we see, all this protest action happen in maybe a Santon city or something, there's no, there's no nationwide coordinated attack that's going to shut down the economic hub of the continent, not
Yeah.
just of South Africa.
No, absolutely. Yeah, that's the thing. Look, I want to also make something clear. I mean, we're not saying that the riots and looting isn't as bad as people put it out to be. It is bad. There's
Yeah, yeah.
horrible things happening. There's been, unfortunately, young people have died and a lot of deaths as well. I think last time I checked, there was 45 deaths so far. And nobody wants that. Nobody's advocating for that. But as I said earlier, this is a layered problem, and I put out a tweet earlier saying this is nobody's fault but the ANC. And
And I agree.
I'm sorry if that's an unpopular opinion to some people, but I'll say it proudly and loudly. This is just a very, very big part of this is just the boiling over of frustration, not just of the lockdown, but 27 years of the ANC being in power and not putting in place infrastructure that would actually survive this had it happened either way. Because the cops, for example, I mean, I know the cops even I give them a hard time on this channel, but I think we're really seeing the failure of the ANC and how they didn't take care of their law enforcement to the point where law enforcement have bullets. I mean, maybe now is a good time because Herman Ruas, the guy that is helping his community, actually mentions in his voice note that they had to fly in ammo. That's how bad it is.
Hey Joe, yeah, as I said, I'm down here with the community in Underberg. The guys around here has closed off the roads, put up roadblocks, Underberg, they've looted a few shops, foreign-owned shops. Some of the pep stores was looted and burned. CQ clothing shop was looted. The guy who has like a outdoor gadget shop was looted. The community actually got together and put up a blockade at the spa, which is not too bad. That hasn't been looted, but Underberg hasn't been damaged as bad. From what I can gather, is Nottingham Road is badly damaged. Bulwer, the town, is literally destroyed. So yeah, a lot of towns in around this area, yesterday and today, has been completely decimated. It looks like a war zone here. You drive into town, there's barricades that the guys put up. The it literally looks like a war zone. Yeah, and the police has run out of ammo. They don't have any rubber bullets left. The local people flew in ammo today. So yeah, I'm just out here assisting these guys. See where we can help and at roadblocks. But it's quiet. Yeah, it's really really quiet at this stage. Hopefully, it's not quiet before the storm. But it seems like what they are doing is they are moving to towns now and try and loot and rob towns which still has businesses left that was intact. So, yeah, it's what I've seen here. Hopefully by Friday we'll be able to get back home. N3 guys are reporting N3 certain parts are open. We're not sure at this stage. I won't dare going back home. Anyways, you guys keep well. Look after yourselves down there, and yeah, we'll talk again. Cheers. Bye.
So yeah, there you hear Herman Roos again. Been on my show a few times, helping out the community, and to my point earlier, as much as we hate on SAPs, and we've seen imagery of them letting people go accidentally or purposely. We've even seen imagery of them even helping with the looting. And I said in my tweet earlier today, there are rotten apples in the SAPs system, but there are officers that put their lives on the line to help the community, and there have been. We've seen them, and this is where the failures of the ANC really show, because the cops they just can't handle it, and they have to call in the community to help. It's great that the community is helping.
Yeah, it is. Through whatever structures, formalized like a neighborhood watch or a CPF, or even unformalized, like, people just deciding that, listen, I'm going to stand up. I've got a bit of experience. I know how to handle a weapon. Let me actually pitch in here. But it's probably just disappointing. And I've been using that word a lot lately. But yeah, it is quite disappointing actually realizing that, quite recently our police service was actually, their budget was reduced, while consequently, all the ministers, their budget for VIP protection has gone up. But yeah, this is a result of that,
Mm-hmm.
underfunding police. You sit with a situation where, there's mass protests spread across certain parts of the country, and then something as basic as running out of ammo happens. These are the actual consequences. And fortunately, we do live in a country where gun rights to a degree have been protected, and there is typically a good shot not so far away. And if those rights gets taken away, then who are we going to rely on to cover the gap that the police themselves admittedly can't? Not of their own doing, by the way, because if you're a good policeman right now, you're not necessarily in charge of who your colleagues are going to be. You just see guys walking in. These are guys you have to work with. Whether they're competent or not, that's actually not on you.
Yeah.
And that's the unfortunate reality. You don't control all of that. So question is who does, and that's the government.
Yeah.
So, and it's solely the government, and it's an ANC-led government. So I agree with you fully that the blame for anything and everything does ultimately go back to the ANC.
Absolutely. I just want to. There's some interesting comments coming in here. Grayling Moolman says the biggest worry for me is the supply chains. The N3 is such an important route for goods, fuel, etc. If it closes, resources do not reach inland. Then Deborah Oliver adding, Nedbank, Old Mutual, MTN have all sent messages to work via their mobile phone apps as their offices and branches are closed. Yeah, let's touch on that as well. I think I believe my I was also sent a letterhead from. Let me just double check here. Yeah, from SAPREF, SAPREF, basically to do with all the fuels and stuff. They say here, due to the civil unrest in the country and disruption of supply routes in and out of KwaZulu-Natal, suppliers of materials critical to SAPREF operations communicated the suspension of deliveries to the refinery due to safety concerns for their staff and damages of the vehicles on roads. Now, as far as I understand, this is all to do with petrol. So petrol is also going to be a problem. And I don't know if anybody remembers a few weeks ago, or actually maybe a few months ago, America had that attack on their fuel line, and it was down for almost a week. The repercussions of which are still being felt.
Yeah.
So, you know, everyone is concerned about, the looting and the deaths that are happening. But on top of already a restricted economy due to lockdown, we now have businesses that are looted, burnt down, ransacking of shops. I mean, let's take one example: the Checkers. We've all seen Checkers, how they've just taken everything. Who's going to pay to restock those shelves? How is that? Like, that business has to take such a knock to do that, because they're going to have to do it. And then that affects everything, because prices are going to go up. Now your petrol's not going out as well, so nobody has a lot of petrol, which affects people that can go to work. Probably, well, they can because they have a car, but they can't because the car's empty. There are so many ripple effects from what is happening that I fear we're going to see a much more disastrous, almost economic failure in the near future. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was having similar thoughts earlier as well. So maybe let's just introduce that boogeyman here, the whole vaccine rollout. So government then goes out to the finance sector and says, listen, like, we're not saying give us money, but can you kind of help us out in procuring these vaccines, and then yeah, help us roll this thing out. And they do that because banks have money, right?
Yeah.
But guess what? At the end of the day, the banks are still the ones who are underwriting a lot of people's insurance. So with all this vandalism, etc., going about, imagine the astronomical cost of those insurance claims. Those are going to need money, right? The same kind of money that the government was probably pledged to help with vaccine rollout. So money's going to disappear, and we're sitting in a situation where the economic impact of this we might just end up with the finance minister or even the Reserve Bank, doing some silly decisions like, let's print more money, or let's go out and loan money, or something to that effect. And that will be disastrous for the economy. We've spoken about, well, I've spoken about this even on other platforms as well. We don't have the kind of financial muscle that the US has to be able to say, listen, guys, we're going to take a knock right now and we will recover again in 6 months' time. We don't have that financial muscle. Pre-COVID, things were not looking good even back then. In the States, they weren't bad. They can afford to say, let's take a hit, and it'll take us maybe a year or two to go back to where we were in 2018. How was our 2018 looking like? It was nothing to write home about.
No.
Unemployment was still high. The GDP growth rate wasn't high. Per
We were
capita
downgraded.
income is actually decreasing. The sheer number, not even the amount, the number of taxpayers is decreasing. A lot of people are immigrating, and this is across the racial boundaries as well. I mean, imagine if someone like me, and again, I'll use myself as an example. If I leave, and you multiply me leaving the country by 1,000, 10,000, that's 10,000 people who've been paying pay as you earn gone.
Yeah.
That's not a good look. People can race hustle all they want about, clever blacks and privileged blacks and all of that. But if we leave, who else has that kind of, in numbers that is, who else has the kind of disposable income that keeps a small family business running?
No,
The person who runs a car wash across the road. If I leave, that's me and my car gone. And if you multiply that at scale, it has disastrous impacts for the economy. And normal people, and oh yeah, the usual person doesn't think about things to this effect. And unfortunately, if we end up in that situation, if we ever find ourselves there, typically it's too little, too late. Once someone's actually gone, chances of them coming back are very slim.
Yeah.
Think of all the teachers, nurses, etc., who've gone off to Canada and the UK. Which one of them are talking about coming back home? None, to my knowledge. A few, 1 in 10. I don't know. So
Especially
yeah,
after what they're seeing now.
yeah, especially after what they see now. So the economic impact is quite devastating. I'm just hoping that this doesn't lead to finance minister, together with the president, Reserve Bank governor, etc., making some really stupid decisions, which history has proven will fail.
Mm.
Yeah, the only thing that typically gets rid of this sort of scenario that we find ourselves in is regime change. Whether we like it or not, it's how apartheid went down. People don't talk about it that much, but the apartheid state was running out of money.
Mm.
To the effect that it was time for a regime change, and this scenario repeats itself not just in this country but anywhere in the world for the past 200 years.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Look, I gotta agree with you, man. I think apartheid and this is like the elephant in the room almost. Nobody. Obviously, the president will come out and say the imagery reminds him of dark days, referring to apartheid in
Yeah,
that way. But but I mean, ironically, the ANC rather is basically steering the South African ship into that iceberg of devastation. And, we're seeing imagery again of apartheid, or similar images of apartheid again, because people are not happy, like you just said, with the regime. It's as simple as that. I do think there is some truth to some of the people that are looting and stuff like that. They say they're hungry and they're frustrated with the current ANC. Absolutely. I mean, I think almost everyone I speak to is upset with the current regime at the moment. And unfortunately, I'm seeing a lot of comments in the comment section at the moment, Cape Independence, Cape Independence. I don't mean to laugh. I'm not saying that it's not, like, I've openly said I would support Cape Independence.
yeah, yeah.
I just feel that I'm not going to get into Cape Independence discussion now. It's also nuanced and complicated. But my point is that there are people that are frustrated with the ANC, and I think we see this across the nation. I think it's why Western Cape is very quiet, because Western Cape predominantly is DA, and we're like, yeah, well, we've kind of known this. That's why we vote DA, or we're at least predominantly DA.
Mm.
So I think maybe. And the point I'm trying to get to is, the ANC is maybe busy eating itself. Is that a theory that we can chew on for a bit? That maybe the fabric that holds it together is falling apart, and they're trying to do what they can to kind of hold on to whatever power they have left. Do you think that's a
Yeah,
possibility?
it's very possible. I'm reminded of a WikiLeaks dossier from, I saw this years ago now, where, again, we don't know if this was true or not, but this was apparently a report about what the CIA actually thought about the ANC, the internal document of the internal document. And yeah, it was something along the lines of, by 2030, they expect the African National Congress to still be in power, but there will be a fight in the African National Congress, at which point they are going to split off into two separate parties. Then there will be a power struggle. And then the country will go into coalition government of some sort, where tribalism will reign supreme, and that would unfortunately, yeah, it would engulf any form of resistance from current opposition parties. Back then, we talking the DA. I think the EFF was still a baby party back then. So this came from WikiLeaks. So now, having seen this, I'm talking 5, 6 years ago, and watching how things are playing out, you start wondering, perhaps they were onto something. Maybe this is maybe this is the ANC eating itself. What if they do split off into, and let's not beat around the bush here, a radical economic transformation cabal made up of predominantly Zuma and his supporters, and those who are firmly in Cyril's camp, maybe with a hint of the return of some of the people ousted during Mbeki's time. While we're talking about Mbeki, the funny thing is, all of Mbeki's people, well, the majority of them, they're doing well for themselves right now. You might not see them in government, but they're out there as ambassadors. The former deputy president Pumzile Mnambo, I believe, I think she's off in a UN organization somewhere. These guys are all doing well, and say what you will about them, like them or not. For me, that kind of shows me that they have some semblance of an ability to retain or maintain a career outside of the African National Congress. All of them. Those who remain, who are in this current ANC, for a lot of them, they've got nothing else outside of the ANC. So they will fight tooth and nail for the ANC. The reason Mbeki could let go was because this is a learned man who's got other interests, ends up being vice chancellor of UNISA. All of his people end up getting some lavish, nice, soft jobs elsewhere. It shows that they do have a level of competence, like them or agree with them or not. This current bunch don't. So I'd put on my tinfoil hat as well and say, yeah, let them eat themselves, because if they split and that inevitably leads to ANC not holding a two-thirds majority in parliament, then we actually all the better for it. It'll actually force these politicians to start getting some work done for a change and not sleep in parliament, because that no matter what happens, the votes are coming in. They'll still be holding on to that seat. The only battle they've really had to worry about was the battles among themselves. We don't know what happens in St. George's Hotel there, where they keep going for their annual conferences. We don't know what kind of fights happen there for NEC seats. But yeah, let them eat themselves, and we'll be all the better for it. Especially right now, where there's new political parties coming in. Obviously, Action SA with Herman Mashaba. I think Musimama is one SA movement. You can write them off or not, but it shows that there's more parties popping up. The NSA as well with Litsila, I forget his name now. But yeah, new parties are popping up, and we all feel better for it. Let's chip away at the ANC, let them eat themselves, but let's not forget our role in this, in that we need to make sure that they have as much of a reduced power base inside of parliament as possible, because without it, then they can't pass laws willy-nilly, like they almost did, not too long ago, actually.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Interesting theory as well. This kind of also ties in with that power play that I mentioned at the beginning. It can get very interesting. Let me just go back to the comments here. We got Mikhail Kanaka is also a bit of he studied politics, I believe, or political science. The problem with a regime change is that we can't guarantee that the opposition parties will collectively move towards a shared goal. Very true.
Very true.
Very, very true. Definitely. I mean, let's talk a bit about the opposition party during this crisis at the moment. I also said in my tweet earlier, I'm actually disappointed with some of the oppositions, that any opposition party except for the EFF. Screw the EFF. But I'm talking about the Cape Party. I'm talking about the DA. I'm talking about ZACP. I'm talking about you mentioned Action SA and all these other parties. I don't feel like they're standing up enough with the people. I think now is the most important time for any opposition party to show that they're with the people. And John Steenhuisen, to his credit, did go to Durban. He did look at some of the damages that happened there and all that. But that's like, John, if you ever watch this, I'm sorry, man, but it kind of felt like a PR stunt.
Isn't he a Durbanite himself?
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe he is. If he is, okay, a bit more sympathy for him. But still, I mean, I don't know. I kind of want some political opposition besides Julius to stand up with the people. Going around and looking at some of the damaged shops for me just isn't. it shows that you care, yes, but I mean, it's not enough. You're like, oh, we're gonna go after Zuma's daughter now, and press charges. So, okay, what are you doing for the people? What are you doing that shows that you are standing and fighting and protecting alongside with the people and protecting your South Africa? What are you doing? At this point, I feel that none of the opposition parties have shown any kind of spine to show that they're worthy of saying we're fighting the people's fight as well. I mean, am I wrong or do you agree?
So maybe let me put it this way, right? If you're the DA, I'll throw in the UDM, Freedom Fund Plus, yeah, maybe a couple of others. I don't think the question should be what are they doing, but what can they actually do? We know the DA has been, they're pushing for federalism of all the 9 provinces. Let's run a federal state of some sort. That way, you put the police in the Western Cape under the custodianship of the premier, et cetera, across all the other provinces. And that's precisely why they want to do it. The DA does genuinely believe that they can do a better job with public services and policing than the current national government can. But we're not in a federal state. So what can the DA, specifically the DA maybe, what can they do in the face of all of this? They don't control police. The best a ward councillor can do for their ward is basically spread some information about. I live in a DA area, and my ward councillor, she's pretty active actually in getting some messaging out. I've met her about 3, 4 times in person, and she does say that, listen, she's got good relationships with, guys on the flying squad, guys in Metro Police and the like, but the Metro Police is not the SAPs. The flying squad guy, this is just a couple of guys. It's not a bulk force of any kind. So they've got their hands tied, I believe. They've really got their hands tied, and they'd have a lot more power if this was a federal state, in which case you could solely point at the premier or the senator if we ever get there.
Yeah.
You could squarely point there and say, listen, you have failed. And I apply this even to the ANC. What can the David, I forget the Gauteng premier's name right now, but what can he do right now? He can't do much. He was on the radio earlier today, busy telling people that, guys, please stop this looting. It's affecting our vaccine rollout program. Our ambulances can't go to people. There are pregnant women who can't go to hospital because of all of this that's happening. Have a heart. Stop this nonsense. But that's all he could do. He couldn't literally say, right, okay, let me take control of sections of the police and start doing my own rollout. He can't do that. That all points squarely at Begicele. So yeah, I'd love to be harsh on the opposition parties here for not doing much, but at the same time, they can't do much. The best the DA can probably do is say, we are going to take these people to court because seemingly no one else is, or at least not yet. So yeah, let's just wait and see how this plans out, and hopefully, these aren't 79-year-olds that will try their level best to drag out this court case. Take them to court. Let's put this to bed within 2 years. I'm no lawyer, so I don't know how long it typically takes, but yeah, I think they're doing the best they can, and good luck to them, and good luck to all the other opposition parties who want to grow a spine and actually do skirt the limit of what they're actually allowed to do, even if it is just a court case and nothing more.
Yeah, look, you make some fair points there. I can't argue with that. And I think Mikhail also saying on that point, unfortunately, if the opposition parties vocalize their views with regards to the looting, people will shout that it's purely virtue signaling. Alternatively, if they remain quiet, they appear to be complicit. It's a knife's edge. Fair point as well.
Damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Exactly. Yeah, I can see that. Maybe I was a bit too harsh, but I don't know. I feel like there's an opportunity here for any opposition. I don't know what that is or what form
Yeah.
that takes, but I feel like there is something. And you know what? I'm not a politician, so maybe it's their job to figure what that is, figure out what that is. But I do think that we could see more. I don't know. I don't have all the answers with that one. I just feel a little bit disappointed. However, I will say this, and I'll give credit where it's due. I was happy to see John on the ground. At least, I mean, he was doing something.
He's more visible than the police minister.
Yeah, exactly. Perfectly put. Exactly. Speaking of the police minister, can I borrow you for a bit longer? Or do you have to? Do you have to leave at 10?
No, I'm good. I'm
Okay.
good.
Because there were some things I wanted to share, and I showed you this earlier, and you had a bit of a chuckle. So this was an article out today. Headline reads: Zuma unrest, SSA looking at possibilities of xenophobic violence and right-wing extremism. Um, I read the article. It's all speculation. They have some groups that are apparently exhibiting, you know, extremism, and they're putting it under right wing and xenophobic allegations and stuff like that.
And I have an issue with that.
What's
I
your
have
issue?
a very big issue with this. That why is it that when people decide that, listen, I've got a mob heading towards my business, I've got a mob heading towards my home, I'm going to pick up a gun and defend my property. Why is that seen as this right wing narrative? As if men throughout generations have not been going to war to protect their families, to protect their flag. Why is it painted as this right wingness? What do you want a man to do? And I'm speaking as a man here. When
Yeah.
you've got a family, you stand up, like you stand up and you protect yours. It's genetically encoded in you to do this. It's not a right wing thing. And, so yeah, that's a very poor article. But on top of that, right, let's just talk about the State Security Agency real quick. They've lost all credibility, particularly in light of what came out. I'm not just going to say the State Capture Commission, but that very damning Al Jazeera piece as well, where you had a Chinese foreign national who can barely speak English saying he had a great relationship with Jeff Makubu when he was the state security. I don't know if it's a minister or head of state security, but guy came out and said that I had a great relationship there. Got caught a couple of times. He was a phone call away. Man had dinner at my house. I know him well. He has photos on my phone of us at my house with my wife. That's his wife as well. So that organization has lost a lot of credibility. So for them, they've got a lot of saving face to do. And
Mm.
them coming out here and saying, no, they're looking at xenophobia and everything. That's not what we're interested in as the general public. We want you to come out and say, right, okay, let's park the xenophobia accusation here and let's put together some solid intelligence of who's actually orchestrating all of this. If there's anyone, don't try to escape by saying, no, this is a xenophobic thing. There were definitely no foreign nationals at Nkandla last week, were they? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
So where was the intelligence behind that? So yeah, it's just disappointing to see articles like this from News 24. Hey, man,
Well, what
I'm
did you
glad they
expect? What did you
I'm
expect to
glad they
see
put
streams?
stuff like this behind a paywall. Actually, like keep it there.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, people can go and read this article for themselves. But I find, like, um, this was said by Beketele. As a cluster, we are monitoring all social media platforms as we are tracking those calling for civil disobedience, he said, adding
Yeah.
that they were working with social media companies to track post origins. Sele warned that if the violence continues, there is a great risk that towns and cities will run out of essential foods, a situation he described as disastrous for the country. As we mentioned earlier, there's consequences to what is happening at the moment, and uh, I mean, how do you feel about that? About what he said there?
No, this sounds like standard speak for someone who's about to say, right, in light of what we've seen on social media, we are going to cut off all communication and or cut off access to Twitter, etc., 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 coming up with all the excuses, not too dissimilar to the one used by the Swaziland Minister of Communication, who so
Mm.
happens to be the king's niece.
Yeah.
People are striking against the king. The king's niece says, you know what? I'm going to instruct MTN, the only network operator in that country, to shut off signal. So yeah, this sounds like that kind of speak where anything goes at this point. You can't tell me that no, we're monitoring social media, etc., etc. That's not real intelligence. what is Koketso tweeting 140 characters about what he's having for breakfast, and whose ideological views he doesn't agree with, got to do with, like, honestly, like, yeah, it just shows that, right, and I say this a lot, it just shows that our government across the board they're inept.
Mm.
They
Mm.
are completely inept, and Begitele is proving his ineptitude in all of this. How can you come out with a statement like this? You have people whose businesses are burning, and your main concern is xenophobic violence and foreign actors who could be inciting all of this. Come on. Like,
Exactly. No,
yeah.
I couldn't have said it better myself. And just very quickly, I wanted to show this other article. Radio stations go down as looters strike. This also happened today. Um, this is where it brings me back to that whole voice note of like infrastructure is going to be destroyed and stuff. This could have been a coincidence. This could have been, but then again, I say this. I say it could have been a coincidence, but I also believe there are no coincidences, especially when it comes to this what's happening now. But basically, community radio stations are down, which for me is alarming because I mean, you're talking about communications here, and if a radio station goes down, what's next? And this is, kind of ties in with the previous article of Bekele. This should be your main priority. This because it's going to escalate. I mean, there's been a water plant that's been burnt down. That's where you should be forcing all your intelligence guys to be like, okay, who the hell did this? Let's go after them before they destroy another important infrastructure. You say you're worried about food and all that. You're worried about, trucks delivering their food and all that. Well, flip and give some police escorts to some of these trucks, so that they can
Yeah.
deliver petrol, so they can deliver food, and put some. I mean, okay, again, it goes back to the whole, the police is understaffed and they're overwhelmed. So can you afford? I know, again, multi-layered, but for me, I just feel like you just said, Koketsu, the ineptitude of SAPs is really, really showing, and their focuses seem to be misguided and put elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, also community radio stations are soft targets. Everyone kind of has an idea that there's DJing equipment in there, there's laptops in there, there's quite a few valuables in there. And because it's a community station, that they can barely afford security. That's where a lot of people's careers start out. So yeah, they're not the richest of organizations. A lot of them are probably non-profits as well. So they're soft targets more than anything. But with that said, they do provide an essential service in that they localize communication.
Yeah,
So this does maybe speak into the possibility that this is all being orchestrated somehow.
yeah,
Because if you cut off the communication line, then you're in control of you're basically in control of spreading fear, panic, and uncertainty to whatever nth degree you want. So yeah, it's unfortunate really, but because they're such soft targets, again, you would think there that an organization like the police would utilize community radio to actually get some messaging out there. I mean, where I live, I'm certainly not going to find out news that pertains to my immediate surroundings from 702, but my local station might. So, yeah, if this is targeted, then intelligently so, unfortunately.
Mikhail, once again, giving his 2 cents, saying, as convincing as it appears to be, looters aren't that intelligent to purposely target important places of infrastructure. Again,
Unless they're directed, of course.
yeah, unless they're directed. I think something I wanted to add to what you just said as well is, and I've lost my train of thought now with that comment, but I'll get back to it. It's not a problem. Yeah, I think on the point of communication, we're seeing 2 articles now. One where a radio station has been destroyed. Another article, as you pointed out, and I didn't even think about, the whole idea of they might shut down social media. That's a scary thought as well. But it has been done. We've seen countries do it in the past. I think Egypt, during the Egyptian revolution, not too long ago, they shut down social media when they learned that it was actually Facebook that started the rise against. So it's not unheard of, and actually a very, very, very scary thought. And I really hope we don't.
Nigeria shut down Twitter 5 weeks ago as well.
Yep.
I don't know how successful the government was there, but
Yeah, maybe we should all invest in VPNs. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's things. I think this is since I've been in South Africa, I haven't seen things get this bad. I mean, Franz Cronier from IRR released an article yesterday saying,
Center for Risk Analysis now.
and Center for Risk Analysis, yeah. Um, he released an article saying basically that this has been a long time coming. This is not new, that they've been warning about this, and I think they hit the nail on the head with that article in saying that again, this was unavoidable. I think Zuma's incarceration was a catalyst, a spark, if you will, because they also say that it was a spark to create this mass unrest. But I think that through all this and through all the misinformation and all the information that we are getting and stuff like that, I think maybe in the next 2 weeks, the true whatever is behind this, the truth will come out eventually. It always does.
It always does, yeah.
Yeah. I'm still trying to remember what I wanted to ask you, and I can't. But I'll get to some of the comments here. Mikhail saying, logically, you have to start worrying when the SABC and large telecommunication companies are being tackled. Most small radio stations depend on SABC infrastructure. Fair point as well.
Yeah, that's true. They relay through SABC and Centec, both of which are SOEs as well. So, good point.
Yeah. I don't see, if you guys have any questions for Koketso, please start sending them in. I'll get to them. I'm going to go on for about 10 minutes, if that's okay with you, Koketso.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. And then I just wanted to, because I got some information here as we were sitting here. And I wanted to just, there's a few videos. Oh, wow. Okay, let me just play this. This is probably, I don't want to say breaking news. Let's just see what this is.
Hey Joe, so we just received news that Donnybrook police station was also set on fire. Anyways, keep well, but bye.
Oh, wow. Okay. Police station was set on fire. I don't know. I'm getting imagery and I don't know if you guys can see it. I don't know if this is the police station. Hold on. Let me just dim my screen a bit so that you guys can see it. I don't know if this is the police station, but this is imagery. You can see, sorry about the ring light, but there's something on fire.
Sure.
So yeah, but you heard it from Herman as well. And again, that's what the voice notes I said earlier said was going to happen.
So yeah, it's possible then. Maybe the ploy is to force the hand of the president into declaring a state of emergency. And if that happens, that would almost definitely postpone the elections then.
I didn't think of that. Can they do that?
Yeah, under state of emergency, and again, maybe our learned friends in the legal fraternity can correct me here, but I believe the normal rule of law kind of twists a bit.
Yeah.
It's almost like martial law. So the standard operating procedure for how the country is governed and how the law applies is moved to the side a little bit. And that would then, that would potentially allow a scenario where you can say that you can't hold elections in a state of emergency.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I didn't even think of that. Look, there are people out there advocating or wanting or calling for state of emergency. I've been against it since the idea came out. I would hate for that to happen. I don't think people completely understand, and maybe I'll get Mark Oppenheimer on the show to chat a little bit more about it because he would know a lot about it. to go into a bit more detail about it. But as far as I understand it, when you go into state of emergency, it's not necessarily, people think, yeah, the army's going to come in, fix everything. There's a lot of other things that happen behind closed doors that the government can get away with basically
Yeah.
no, nothing is in their way,
Yeah,
basically.
they can even pilfer those PIC pension funds if they want to under state of emergency.
Exactly. So it's a very serious thing, and I don't think people understand that. So yeah, the news of a police station being burnt is a very 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 scary situation. Let me just see here. Ruan Vandervolt asking, at what point do law-abiding citizens start taking up arms to protect their communities? Is martial law a possibility? Well, we just said martial law could be a possibility. We hope not. But I think law-abiding citizens are taking up arms. We've seen them, stand next to the police, and some of them I think are a bit extreme. And I don't mean extreme in the sense of extremists. I mean extreme like they go a bit too far with their protection. We have seen some overhandedly citizens that get a bit out of hand with their protection, if we could put it that way.
I think there is a reason for that, though.
Yeah, obviously they're angry. They're upset that this is happening. I understand the emotions behind it, but I mean, uh, you know,
I mean, I was thinking about it earlier today that perhaps some people do this so that you want to send a very clear message that
yeah,
don't come back here.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
absolutely.
because yeah, if you're a little bit lenient, then it starts looking like, okay, these guys are warning us. But if it comes out very strong, then no one's gonna go back there because they know that you'll shoot them.
Mm.
And the only way they'll know that is if you shoot them. So so
Look,
yeah, again, I'm not condoning it. I was
but
just
that's the
thinking to
thing,
myself
Koketsu.
that why would people go overhand like this? Is it a trigger finger that's been itching? But then I realized that no, they really just want to show that, listen,
Mm.
this isn't where you come mess around. Do not try us. Try go down there or something.
Yeah, and I get that because the moral side of me, when I see imagery that is quite harsh and intense, I think to myself, like, oh man, that doesn't look good. That's horrible. But at the same time,
Mm,
I start to think we're in anarchy at the moment. This is the purge. This is what happens when if I was in that man's shoes, I'd probably react the same way to protect my business or my family. If you've
mm,
got someone coming at you with a weapon or going through your stuff to steal, you're gonna protect. And I get it. I absolutely get it. People need to
mm.
protect their own, and like you said, make a statement. And in that regard, even though I don't condone it, and I don't, or I don't, yeah, I don't condone it. I get it. I absolutely get it, and I hope that I'm not in that situation. But I mean, if
Yeah.
I am, like, then so be it. Then let's see. Mikhail says martial law requires an emergency parliamentary meeting with a two-third majority. So there you go. And then he also
Okay.
says, play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's to answer Ron. Yeah, I think people have started taking arms. I think it's good that they have. Yeah, it is what it is, And man, I just I don't know. Okay, I think maybe in closing, let's ask this question, Koketsu. And I'll answer it first. The question is, do you think South Africa is going to be the same when all is said and done and this whole thing is over? Personally, in the short and sweet of it, I don't think so. I don't think we're going to be the same.
Okay. That's short and sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'll throw a spanner here. I think it will be.
Okay.
Um, and I'll give my reason. A hell of a lot of people are, yeah, they're basically they're empowered by racial division. Right. So look how quickly it took people to park the issue that there is criminality, arson, vandalism, damage to property. People quickly put that aside and went and literally reached for that race card. You know, it didn't take long at all. It snap of a finger, it turned into Indians in Durban are massacring blacks.
Mm.
No, no one gave pause and said, but these guys are protecting their homes. They didn't leave their neighborhood and go to Kwamashu and start shooting people. The guy literally took his gun, went to stand by the main road of his neighborhood with a few friends and said, "We will shoot you." No, he didn't go to where the people who are perpetrators are. They came to him.
Yeah.
But no one saw that. They quickly turned it into Indians are shooting blacks, whites are shooting blacks. Yeah. So when everything is said and done, how will the majority of people remember this anarchy that's going on here? In my mind, they're going to remember it as the day non-black people reminded black people that they have guns, they have money, they have power, and we will never get our land back or our country back, etc. That's how I see it. So I think things will be probably more of the same when everything is said and done, and in fact, potentially could get worse because now the little pockets of tribalism that existed before, they might just start uniting under the racial banner now. Unfortunately, it's a reality I'm willing to accept. I don't like it, but I'm willing to accept that this could be a thing.
Wow. Again, excellent points that I didn't even think of. Well, when I said I think South Africa is going to be different, I mean, I don't know. I feel like sort of what you're talking about. Like there's going to be more tensions in the air with everyone. But I think you definitely put it more into perspective for me, and I have to say I tend to agree with you. What happens next is probably the mainstream media continuing that race narrative stronger than ever before. Julius piping up and using certain imagery and things that happen to continue his agenda that he's trying to do. And the ANC will somehow fall somewhere in the middle, but they'll give a speech of some kind saying, oh, we overcame and ANC was the hero, but we mustn't forget the flaws that still exist in this country and we must work to be better. Something along those lines, the typical speech that is always given. And apartheid is still to blame. They'll throw that in there somewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't think of it like that, and I think unfortunately you might be right.
Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah. All right, Koketso, Koketso, we're going to end it here. I think this has been, honestly, dude, one of my favorite shows so far. I think this was a very riveting and interesting discussion, and thank you so much for being willing to sit down with me and have this discussion. Is there anything you would like to say in closing?
Yeah, probably to encourage more platforms like this. At the end of the day, I'm just a guy, like I explained in the beginning. I'm not a pre-qualified political analyst with the University of Witwatersrand degree in political science.
Yeah.
I was never part of the student representative council.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not in a formal structure of any political party. At the end of the day, I'm just a guy. But I really do spend energy in getting opinions from as many places as I can and applying my own thoughts to things and not just accepting everything that is given to us from different media and friends, etc., at face value. I do work on being able to, or at least trying to, formulate my own opinion. And and again, talk to people, guys. Like,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to this race thing, talk to people on the street, go out and meet people. I'm an introvert. I don't like crowds at all. Never did, but I talk to people and you'll find out a lot about people's lived experience and what people actually think of one another. And if you do that, you'll quickly see that actually we've been herded like sheep into accepting a narrative that doesn't really represent our true nature.
Yep.
So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Absolutely. For those of you who may want more information on that, is follow racism is not the problem.co.za. Also, they're available on Twitter. They give out a lot of information about how the racist narrative that the ANC and mainstream media that is trying to shove down our throats is actually not true.
It's manufactured.
It's manufactured. So, Koketso, once again, thank you so much for joining me. I would love to have you back. I hope you will come back, and we'll hopefully have a bit of a lighter conversation. But once again, it was phenomenal, and thank you so much for joining me.
Pleasure's mine.
And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Joe Emilio. If you enjoyed this, please like, share, subscribe to the channel, tell your friends and family. I'll see you guys tomorrow evening. And on Thursday evening, I have a show. Just subscribe. You'll find all the information on my channel. And if I don't see you then, stay safe, be kind to one another, and I'll see you at the next one. Cheers.